Hi guys, I'm Karen Rice. Welcome to my watercolour channel, and for Tuesday's tips and techniques I'm going to be painting or using Brusho on Yupo paper, and it's going to be just some dandelions straight out of my imagination. But if you want to use a photograph, you can do so. If you want to paint something like this, you don't have to use it on the Yupo paper, you could use it on watercolour paper. So shall we get started? For a full list of all the materials I'm going to be using in this demonstration, please see the description below. Just click show more. So I'm just wetting the Yupo paper, and Yupo paper is a smooth surface synthetic paper, and it's great to use with alcohol inks, mixed media, watercolours and acrylics. You can wipe off the paint, which is great. It's why it's great with watercolours, because if you make a mistake you can just wipe off, wet or dry, and you can scratch and blend, and it creates some really amazing effects. So I thought I'd try it out with the Brusho. Brusho is a great medium. It's very unpredictable, and it creates some wonderful textures and has beautiful colours. And if you'd like to have more information about Brusho, I've actually made a video all about it, and I'll put a link for that in the description below. But I'm just having fun here, tapping on the colours. I've pierced a little hole into the lid of those little drums there to allow the powder to come out and fall onto the wet surface, but you could do that and sprinkle it onto a dry surface and then spritz it, as I'm doing here with my spritzer bottle, to get all the colours blending. Now you notice my hands are a bit sort of messy there from the Brusho. I've been playing with it all afternoon, so if you don't want to get your hands messy, I'd use some gloves. I'm using a plastic card here just to manipulate the Brusho and move it around to create stems and leaves, just having fun. You can see the Brusho's explosive, really creating all those textures and all those amazing colours. The biggest tip I'd give you with Brusho is less is more. So even though it looks good, you've got to hold back a bit. But I'm just having fun even printing with the card here as well to create marks and texture. And the paper stays wet for quite a long time, the Yupo paper, and that's to me the only downside. And you can see it's quite puddly. It doesn't get absorbed like it would with watercolour paper. So you have to wait for a long time for it to dry, and you can't really blow dry at this stage. It'll just make the paint fly everywhere. What I'm doing here, which is a really fun technique, I'm using my pipette and I've diluted some household bleach, 30% bleach, 70% water. And I have made sure that my room is well ventilated. I've got my windows open for health and safety, and I'm using the tiniest amount with the pipette here. And it just sort of grows and makes these amazing sort of dandelions. You almost don't have to do anything. The only thing you have to do is restrict yourself from doing too much. So it really is less is more. But just have fun. And the great thing about the Yupo paper is you can just wipe off afterwards. So you can just have a practice using the Brusho on here, trying out different techniques. You can also do this with water as well. Just put a little droplet of water. Won't be quite the same, but it still creates these little round circles as well. So I'm just giving you an example here of lifting off. I'm using my paper towel and I'm just lifting off a little bit there. And it's created quite a nice glow there. So it's created sort of a different look for the dandelions. So I'm going to work on the centres here, and I'm using a little bit of light brown Brusho. A full list of the colours the Brusho colours that I'm using here you can find in the description below. But I'm using a really small synthetic brush. Because I've used bleach, I've decided not to use my good watercolour brushes here. So I'm just using a small round synthetic brush here. And I'm just sort of using the background colour to create some of the details as well. So all the colours are on there, and I'm just almost using it like a palette because there's little puddles here and there, just creating marks with this small round brush. So I'm just stippling some more darks into the centre, and this part of the painting of the dandelion has actually dried here, but there are some other puddles lurking, so you can't really sort of move it or tilt it because it'll all run over your dandelions. But that won't be the end of the world, because if it does drizzle, which I will show you later, you can just lift off again. It's as easy as that. I'm using some of the puddles to create some more leaves and stems and details there. And I'm also using the background colours where it's wet, just to cut into some of the dandelions there, where when I put the bleach on it sort of spread too much. So I'm just getting the circles back of the dandelions there, getting the structure and the shapes, as you can see here as well, just finessing them and just taking my time, as you can see, just pulling the wet Brusho there, the puddles, and just using those darker colours just to really come in a little bit onto my main dandelion. So you've got the dark against the light that really brings them forward. You can be so creative with the Brusho and the Yupo paper, because you've got all these chances. If things go wrong, you can just wipe things off and have another go. And here I am now. Everything, most of everything is dried off except for the top middle part. It's still a puddle there, and I didn't want to touch it, and I didn't want to blow dry it and have everything flying about. I'm using this small synthetic brush here with some water, clean water, and just sort of softening the edges of the dandelion, but also lifting off to create a stem. Then I'm taking off there, had a little run there into the dandelion there. So as you can see, you just wet the surface, and this is the same with watercolor as well, and Yupo paper. You just wake it up straight away, and you can just lift off, and it takes you back really to the actual Yupo paper. You don't have any sort of too much staining or residue of paint. So you just got to be a little bit careful, because you could take off all your good bits of painting as well. If you're like me, I'm a bit clumsy with a paper towel, and I've sort of scooped off too much paint. But I'm just finessing with the edges here, and it's quite nice. You've got some really sort of darks and textures here, and I haven't really used too much Brusho at all really, except for that beginning bit where I sprinkled on all the Brusho and spritz afterwards. But I'm again just painting in some detail here, just trying to bring these dandelions to life, creating marks and textures. I love the abstract background, the textures of the Brusho, and how the Yupo paper has allowed that to happen as well. You can use obviously the Brusho on watercolour paper, but there's something very magical here. I'm using white gouache, and the dandelions are dry. I'm using this small size 2 synthetic brush and just painting on some whites. Now I could take this off as I did with the stem, but I found that a little bit fiddly, and this is much quicker to do. So if I can speed things up, I always do. So I'm just painting this wet on dry to create some highlights and a little bit of sparkle. There's always a danger when you can keep changing things, that you do keep changing things, and sometimes you'll create something really good and then you'll lose it. So I always think just do another one, don't overwork them. And how I stop myself from doing that is I always spatter. I don't tend to paint after a spatter. Well, I try not to. But this is white gouache again, the little brush. I've watered down the gouache. I'm just spattering this white paint to create light and textures and the illusion of the dandelions in the distance. And it's just a nice way of finishing off the painting. So thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I really hope you've learned something about Yupo Paper and Brusho as well. And remember, I will put a link in the description below if you want to know more about Brusho. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please put them in the comments section below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my watercolour YouTube channel. And for those of you that would like access to longer, more in-depth watercolour tutorials with lots more tips and techniques, with access to downloadable outline sketches, why not think about joining my Patreon membership? Just click the link on the screen, or you can find more details in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.